So the young players today, you have to paint the picture for them where we were then and where you are today.
He was a batter of unparalleled power, a pure slugger with a swing that could redecorate the outfield. His name was Don Baylor. But this wasn't just a story of crushing baseballs and overwhelming opponents. This was also a story of a man who absorbed more punishment than any hitter in baseball history. Hit by pitches. Blazoned by baseballs. He wore the bruises like badges of honor, a testament to his willingness to stand his ground. But how much is too much? How many times can a man be struck by the object he's trying to hit, before the price of standing firm becomes truly unbearable? Born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1949, Donald Edward Baylor grew up with a love for the game that burned as fiercely as the southern sun. A natural athlete, he excelled in multiple sports, but baseball was his first and truest love. He had a raw, untamed power that turned heads, a glimpse of the thunder he'd unleash on the diamond. He was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles in 1967, a young man with dreams as big as Camden Yards. Baylor's ascent through the minor leagues was swift and meteoric. His bat was always the headline. He showed flashes of the MVP caliber talent that would later define his career. But even in those early days there were whispers. A certain fearlessness, perhaps even recklessness in his approach to the plate. He didn't just play the game, he wrestled with it, and often it wrestled back. His major league debut came in 1970, a rookie thrust into a loaded Orioles lineup. He wasn't just another player, he was a fresh infusion of power. In his debut season, he showed what he was capable of, hitting .247 with 10 home runs and 45 RBIs. Not MVP numbers, not yet. But the foundation was there, a promise of what was to come. The Orioles were a dynasty in the early 70s, a powerhouse built on pitching and timely hitting. Baylor was a crucial part of that machine. By 1973, he was a full-time starter, swatting 21 home runs and driving in 72 runs. His presence in the lineup made them even more formidable. He was becoming a recognized threat, a man pitchers had to respect. And that respect, as we'll soon see, came with a price. Even in these early years, the baseballs were finding him. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a consequence of his proximity to the plate, his refusal to bail out, his unwavering commitment to seeing the ball and hitting it. He was a warrior at the plate, and the battlefield wasn't always forgiving. His offensive game was undeniable. He could run, he could hit for average, and he could absolutely crush the ball. But it was his sheer, unadulterated power that truly set him apart. He was a physical specimen, a player who exuded a confidence that bordered on defiance. He wasn't intimidated by pitchers, he was ready to conquer them. By 1975, Baylor was blossoming. He was named an All-Star, hitting .313 with 25 home runs and 105 RBIs. He was a star, a bona fide major league slugger. He was a fixture in the Orioles' championship contention. But the number of times he was hit by a pitch was also steadily climbing, a silent, growing tally on his career ledger. The Orioles traded him to the Oakland Athletics in 1977 for a package of players. It was a fresh start, a new chapter for a player on the cusp of his prime. But the story of Don Baylor was always tied to the duality of his game. Immense power, immense resilience, and immense pain. He was a hitter who commanded attention, and the game, in its own unique way, was paying him back with interest. The Oakland A's in the late 70s and early 80s were a volatile mix, and Don Baylor was at the heart of it. He flourished in Oakland, transforming into the fearsome slugger everyone knew he could be. His 1979 season was nothing short of legendary. He played in all 162 games, a testament to his incredible durability, and he hammered 36 home runs, driving in a career-high 120 runs. It was this season that cemented his status as one of the most feared hitters in baseball. Opposing pitchers knew they had to pitch him carefully, but even then he found ways to punish them. He wasn't just hitting homers, he was hitting them with authority, sending them to the deepest parts of the stadium. He was the offensive engine of the A's. But the story of Don Baylor's toughness is inextricably linked to the beanballs. In 1979, he was hit a staggering 35 times. 35 times. That's more than 2 times a game someone threw a pitch that struck him. Think about that for a second. Standing at home plate, staring down a pitcher hurling a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and resisting the primal urge to flinch. Baylor's philosophy was simple. He wasn't going to give pitchers the satisfaction of seeing him duck. He believed in squaring up the ball, in making contact. He felt it was a sign of weakness to avoid the inside pitch. So he took his lumps. He absorbed the blows. He was a living, breathing embodiment of what it meant to play through pain. He won the American League MVP award in 1979. A fitting reward for a season of dominance that was as much about his bat as it was about his fortitude. He beat out some incredible talent like Fred Lynn and Lee Mazzilli for the award. It was the pinnacle of his individual career, a moment where his sheer will and talent were recognized on the grandest stage. But the MVP year was also an explosion of the problem. 1979 wasn't an anomaly, it was a symptom. The following season, in 1980, he was hit 26 times. 26. The trend was undeniable. He was leading the league in home runs, RBIs, and often in getting plunked. Baseball was a game of inches, and for Baylor it was often a game of inches from the inside corner and the sting of a baseball. He eventually moved on to the New York Yankees in 1981, a team steeped in history and expectation. His power didn't diminish. He could still mash. He hit 11 home runs in just 27 games during the strike-shortened 1981 season. He continued to be a threat, a difficult out for any pitcher. The Yankees traded him to the Boston Red Sox in 1982. He wasn't slowing down, but the physical toll was surely beginning to mount. Each hit-by-pitch was a reminder, a jarring jolt to the system. It wasn't just the pain, it was the disruption of his at-bats that added pressure. Pitchers knew they had to throw inside to keep him honest, and Baylor's commitment meant he was always in the strike zone, always vulnerable. His career continued, a testament to his resilience and love for the game. He played for the Minnesota Twins from 1985 to 86, and then for the Boston Red Sox again in 1986. Even in the twilight of his career, he could still provide pop. He hit 12 home runs in his final season with the Red Sox in 86, helping them reach the World Series. But as the years went on, the question loomed larger. Was this extraordinary toughness sustainable? Was the price of his fearless approach accumulating into something more profound than just bruises and contusions? How much could one man's body endure before the game itself, in its own brutal way, finally took its toll? The sheer volume of his injuries is, frankly, astounding. Don Baylor was hit by pitches more times than any other player in Major League Baseball history. His career total stands at a breathtaking 267 times. 267. Let that number sink in. That's an average of almost 14 times a season over his 19-year career. He wasn't just getting grazed, he was absorbing direct hits. Ribs, arms, legs, even the helmet. He took them all. And he always stayed in the batter's box. There was no tantrum, no immediate confrontation. Just a quiet, steely resolve. He would get up, dust himself off, and get ready for the next pitch. This wasn't just about pride, it was about his game. He felt that if he flinched, if he showed fear, pitchers would have an advantage. He believed that staying in the box, even when the heat was on, was essential to his success. He was a man who refused to be intimidated. His 1977 season with the Orioles saw him hit 23 home runs and drive in 95 runs, but he was also plunked 18 times. The next year, 1978, he hit 25 homers and drove in 90, and was hit 21 times. It was a constant, gnawing presence in his game. This wasn't just part of baseball, it was becoming a defining characteristic of his career. His MVP season in 1979, where he hit 36 homers and drove in 120, he was hit a career-high 35 times. 35. It's a stat that overshadows nearly every other offensive achievement. In 1980, he hit 34 homers and drove in 97, but was hit 26 times. The pattern was relentless. Even in his later years, the hits kept coming. In 1983, with the Yankees, he hit 18 home runs and drove in 60 and was beamed 17 times. In 1984, with the Red Sox, he hit 16 home runs and drove in 55 and was hit 15 times. The physical toll had to be immense. The constant impact, the inflammation, the fear of a potentially career-ending pitch. Baseball historians and statisticians have pored over these numbers, and the consensus is clear. Don Baylor bore more of the brunt of pitchers' intentions than any other hitter in baseball. He was a target, a man who drew the ire of more pitchers than perhaps anyone else. Think about the psychological aspect. Every time he stepped into the box, the knowledge that a baseball could potentially fly directly at him must have been a heavy burden. But Baylor carried it with a stoicism that was almost unnerving. He wasn't just playing baseball, he was enduring it. His reputation as a tough, no-nonsense player was well-earned. He was a leader, a protector of his teammates, and a formidable presence. But the sheer number of times he was hit by pitches paints a picture of a man who was constantly under siege. It begs the question, at what point does resilience morph into an unsustainable burden? His career numbers are remarkable: 336 home runs, 1139 RBIs, and MVP award. But for every one of those milestones, there was the underlying story of the hits. The relentless barrage of baseballs. He was the MVP who was hit too hard too often. The long-term effects of those constant impacts are hard to fully quantify, but they are undeniable. Baseball can be a brutal sport, and Don Baylor experienced its brutality in a way few others did. The constant jarring, the accumulated trauma takes a toll on the body. While Baylor never publicly dwelled on the long-term consequences in great detail during his playing days, the statistics speak for themselves. He wore the pain with a quiet dignity, never making excuses. But the physical reality of being hit that many times couldn't be ignored. His playing career ended after the 1987 season, though he was technically on the Red Sox roster for a brief period in '87 before being released. The cumulative effect of those years of absorbing pitches, the constant physical stress, surely played a role. It's the unseen cost of his legendary toughness. After his playing career, Baylor transitioned into coaching and managing. He became a respected figure in the dugout, sharing his knowledge of the game. He managed the Colorado Rockies from 1993 to 2000, leading them to a division title in 1995, a remarkable achievement for a young franchise. He later managed the Texas Rangers from 2000 to 2002. Even as a manager, his presence exuded a certain gravitas. He was a man who had seen it all, who had endured it all. He understood the mental and physical demands of the game at the highest level. His experience at the plate under constant duress undoubtedly informed his approach to managing. He was known for his fiery speeches and his no-nonsense attitude. He instilled a sense of pride and toughness in his players. He was a mentor, a teacher, and a leader. But behind the gruff exterior was a man who had paid a steep price for his dedication to the game. Sadly, Don Baylor passed away in 2017 at the age of 68 after a battle with cancer. The cause of his death was not directly attributed to his hit-by-pitch incidents, but it's impossible not to consider the potential long-term impact of a lifetime of absorbing such physical punishment. His legacy is that of a true baseball warrior. An MVP, a slugger, a clubhouse leader. But it's also the legacy of a man who was uniquely, intensely, and perhaps tragically punished by the game he loved. He stood his ground, he swung for the fences, and he took his hits. He showed us what it means to be relentlessly tough, to refuse to be intimidated. He embodied a certain old-school grit that is often romanticized, but in his case, it was a gritty reality etched into his very being. His story is a powerful reminder of the physical toll that can come with unwavering dedication and fearlessness in the face of adversity. He was more than just an MVP. He was a symbol of resilience, a man who proved that sometimes the greatest strength lies not just in hitting the ball but in enduring the hits. Don Baylor. He swung for the fences, he led his teams, and he earned an MVP. But his story is also written in the pain of every pitch that found him. He was a hitter who was truly hit too hard, and too many times, forever embodying the brutal beauty and unforgiving nature of America's pastime.